Hello everyone, I'm Nikita Lakhani and today I'll be representing LexClick and I'll be discussing the topic doctrine of ultra-vires in the company law. So people interested in company law, it is gonna be pretty fun. So before we start with the topic, we are supposed to be clear with a few terms that I'll be discussing here forth. So what is a memorandum of association? So, Memorandum of Association represents a charter of the company. In simple words, it is a legal document prepared during the formation and registration process of a company to define its relationship with the shareholders, and it specifies the objectives for which the company has been formed. Now that we've gone through it, we are supposed to know the object clause of Memorandum of Association of a company. So it relates to the scope of activities of the company. So now a company is empowered to do all such things which are authorized under the Memorandum of Association. Now, and a company can do all such things that are also authorized by the Companies Act 2013. Another thing, a company can do things that are reasonably and fairly incidental to the object of the company specified in the Memorandum of Association. Now, the second term we should be sure about is intra-vires. When a company is empowered to do all such acts within the scope and ambit of its objectives mentioned in the Memorandum of Association and also under the provisions of the Companies Act, such acts are known as intra-vires. That is within the power of the company. Easy. Now getting on to the main topic. Ultra-vires, when the company does any act which is beyond the scope and ambit of the objects specified in the Memorandum of Association of the company, or the act which is beyond the provisions of the Company Act, or which is not reasonably or fairly incidental to the object of the company, such act is called ultra-vires. Now we'll break down the term. Ultra means beyond and virus means power. There it simply means an act beyond the power. In other words, the action outside the Memorandum of Association of the company is ultra-vires the company against the company. Now we'll be discussing the basis of doctrine of ultra-vires a company. So the term ultra-vires a company implies that doing any act is beyond the power and authority of the company. So this doctrine of ultra-vires was clearly laid down by the House of Lords in Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Risch in 1875. Now it's a pretty old one. It is basically when this doctrine was laid down. So an act which is ultra-vires the company does not create any legal relationship, and therefore such act is absolutely void, and even the whole body of shareholders cannot ratify the same. In other words, the House of Lords held in this case that the act which is ultra-vires the Memorandum of Association of the company cannot be validated even by the subsequent ratification of all the shareholders. So we'll be discussing brief facts of the case. So Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company was incorporated to manufacture or make and sell or lend on hire railway carriages and wagon, and also to carry on the business of mechanical engineers and general contractors. The director of the Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company contracted with Risch, the firm railway contractors. A contract was entered into between Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron and Risch to finance the construction of railway line in Belgium. Subsequently, the company repudiated the contract with Risch on the ground that the contract was ultra-vires the company. As a result, Risch brought an action for damages for breach of contract on the following conditions. The contract was within the meaning of the words general contractors and it was within the power of the company. The contract was ratified by the majority of shareholders of the company. So the decision by the House of Lords was that the contract was ultra vires and therefore such contract is null and void. The House of Lords further observed that the subscribers are required to state the object of the company and the company comes into existence only with those objects. The second is, once the objects are disclosed, the statement to such disclosure has two folds. Now the first one is it deals with the ambit and extent of power of the company, and the second is it restricts the company to act beyond such ambit. So now getting on to the third point, the term general contractors means the making of such contracts which may be connected with the business of mechanical engineer. The term general contractors must be interpreted as above to avoid making of contracts of any and every description. The fourth point is the contract was beyond the powers of the company when the company could not make such contract. Therefore, it could not even be ratified. Now we'll discuss the effect of ultra vires transactions. So the first one being effect of ultra vires contracts. A contract of corporation in ultra vires, which means such contract is outside the objects defined by the memorandum of the company. Therefore, such contract is wholly void and without any legal effect. An ultra vires contract which is void ab initio cannot become intra vires. It just cannot. By reason or ratification, lapse of time, estoppels and delay. Any performance done on either side is in connection with unlawful contract does not get validity and therefore does not create a right of any action because the contract is ultra vires. The second effect is injunction. So many of us already know the meaning, we'll just go through it once. The effect of ultra vires transaction also leads to obtaining injunction against the company which is guilty of an ultra vires act. Whenever an ultra vires act is done or is about to be undertaken, any member of the company can move the court for an injunction to restrain the company from doing an ultra vires act or from proceeding with an ultra vires act or transaction. Now, the third one is breach of warranty of authority. Breach of warranty of authority means when the director or agent of the company who is required to act within the scope and limits of the powers of the company goes beyond by inducing the third person to enter into a contract with the company in the matter which is beyond the power of the company. In such case, the director or agent is personally liable to the third person for any loss for breach of warranty of authority, which was also laid down in the case of Weeks versus Proppert in 1873. It was held in the case that the directors are the agents of the company and it is their duty to keep within the limit of the company's power. If an outsider is induced by them, however innocently, to contract with the company in the field in which the company does not have power to act, the directors in such situation will be personally liable to the outsider for any loss caused to him. Now, getting on to the fourth effect, personal liability. Any part of the company's capital is diverted to any foreign purpose, that is, any purpose unknown to the memorandum of the company. In such situation, the directors of the company will be personally liable again for such diversion of the capital of the company. Now, this was laid down in the case of Jahangir R. Modi versus Shamji Lada in 1866 and 67. It went on for a year. So, It was observed in this case by the Bombay High Court that the shareholders have a power to initiate an action against the directors for compelling them to maintain the company's fund without the memorandum. It was observed by the Bombay High Court that the shareholders have a power to initiate an action against the directors for compelling them to maintain the company's fund without diverting the fund to the purpose other than the purpose mentioned in memorandum of association. If they fail in their duty and divert the fund of the company contrary to the purpose mentioned in the memorandum, they will personally be liable for any loss. Now the fifth point is effect of ultra-virus acquired property. If money of the company is spent ultra-virus in buying some property, the company is entitled to claim that property. Although purchased and acquired wrongly, such property represents the capital of the company. In other words, the company's right over the property which has been wrongly acquired has to be secured. Now we could take an example of the case Adi Seth versus Bank of Mysore in 1930. In this case, the Madras High Court gave a decision allowing the company to sue on a mortgage to recover the money which was lent ultra-virus. In other words, despite the money lent by the company was beyond the power of the company was allowed to take action on mortgage to recover the money lent beyond the power of the company. The Madras High Court placed reliance on the observation of Bryce in his book Doctrine of Ultra-Virus, that the property, if illegally transferred to a corporation, such property is vested in such corporation even though the corporation was not within its power to acquire such property. Now moving on to the last and the sixth effect. We're almost over, we could get it done, guys. So effect of ultra-virus, torts. Law student, torts pretty familiar, we'll get through it. A tort means a civil wrong. A company is made liable for a tort committed by a servant of a company which was doing any act beyond the company's powers. In order to make the company liable for any tort, the following conditions must be fulfilled. A. That an act which amounts to tort falls within the scope of the memorandum of association. If it doesn't, again, it is the liability of the directors. That the act which amounts to tort is committed by the servants of the company within the course of his employment. And now that brings us to the end of the discussion of this topic. So thank you. I hope you guys understood it pretty well. Bye.